2019 season, and to let you know that today's business forum is being recorded and will be aired on QPTV, which is Queens Public Television. We are once again pleased to have such a great turnout this morning. Our panel discussion on the value of a liberal arts education in today's business environment. I would like to take this opportunity to thank our many sponsors, Farrell Fritz, PricewaterhouseCoopers, and New York Presbyterian. In addition, I would like to thank our community sponsors, Borough President Melinda Katz, Queens Chamber of Commerce, Queens Economic Development Corporation, SCORE New York Metro, Queens Public Television, Queens Tribune Press, and the Daily News. Our forums are presented solely from the generous donations of our sponsors, and if you are interested in donating, please see anyone at the table outside, and the suggested nominal donation is $25. I would like to announce some upcoming events and opportunities that are underway at the Career Center for career engagement and internships that would be of interest to employers here. Our recruiting season began this week for our accounting students and will run through October. On this Monday, September 17th, we are hosting our annual Business and Technology Forum, and we are very excited to have over 25 employers joining us on Monday. We have several new employers joining us this year, and if you are interested in recruiting our students, please see me at the end. Queens College will soon host a small business development outreach center and support for small businesses throughout the borough. If you have any questions about that, please see me at the end of the forum. At this time, it gives me great pleasure to introduce you to the president of Queens College, Felix Matos Rodriguez.
Good morning, buenos dias. I know it's cloudy, it's Friday, the weather hasn't really been good, so I'm going to, I'm sure that by the end of Mark's talk we'll all be energized. Let me just modify one of the things that Diane said. Diane sort of said, is there any employers here who might be interested in recruiting our students, right? And I'm going to say, is there any employer here who's not interested in recruiting our students? Coffee will not be served, okay? She's being very, very, very polite. You'll be missing a great opportunity to tap into phenomenal talent. Welcome to our first business breakfast forum for the year. The year has started with a bang. We have the largest crop of first-time freshmen that we've had in the college for about 30 years. So the Queens College brand continues to be strong and attracting talented and great students to the campus. We have a phenomenal group of new faculty, probably the largest faculty we've had probably in a decade, a very, very diverse and group of talented scholars and creative folks. So we're very, very excited to be adding that talent to our faculty. If you've been following the press, we've been in the Chronicle of Higher Education listed as in the top 1% of all schools in the U.S. In creating social mobility for our students, part of that public mission of ours to make sure that students with all their talent and intelligence and passion, but maybe who do not have the means, are able to go in and advance socially and professionally. So we're very proud to be part of that elite 1% group. For the 27th year in a row, we've been in the list of best colleges from the Princeton Review. So we're delighted about that distinction. And exciting things all over the campus. Last night we opened a beautiful, if you have time, exhibit at the Goodwin Turnback Museum, something coming out of our collection of textiles. We are a teaching museum, and a really beautiful collection of Egyptian and Middle Eastern textiles, and then art connected with that, guided by one of our faculty members. We had the opening yesterday. It's a beautiful exhibit. In 2 weeks, if you're here, it's Climate Week change, right? And if there's still anybody who doesn't believe the climate is changing, Florence, Maria, should I name any more of those hurricanes? And we're going to have we're going to have a week long of activities capped by a huge ship that has all the technology around weather, checking the weather and connecting with emergency systems in the middle of the quad, right? So if you wake up one day and you find a humongous ship in the middle of the quad, it is not that you had a long night the night before, right? And we're going to be doing that and having talks and events. We're going to be bringing students into the campus. Make sure that's the week of September 24th that you check out our website for the events around Climate Change Week. And on October 14th, we're also going to be using our beautiful campus to have homecoming, and we're going to switch the way that we've been doing in the past and have it be more like a festival to celebrate our alumni, our students, our community here at Queens. So a lot of things are happening as always on the campus, and I'm getting the signal that I am being too excited about things on the campus, and I should go ahead with the task at hand, which is to introduce the great speaker that we have lined up to begin our forums series this year. And actually, I was telling our speaker that we're going to tape him and use him when I go recruiting and talking to parents about the value of a liberal arts education. So he said that for a small commission, he'd be happy that we'd be allowed to use his remarks. But it's very, very, very timely in terms of the work that we've been doing here at Queens College for the past 81 years. You have a version of his bio in the program, so I'm just going to highlight a number of things. And Mark is a director at BlackRock and a member of the firm's financial markets advisory team since past July, and he brought in some of the members of his team, Queens College alum, if I can make the plug. So he's in good company over there at BlackRock. Prior to that, he was part of BlackRock's Strategic Partnership Program, where he worked to serve in the firm's largest financial institutional clients. Prior to coming over to BlackRock in 2014, Mark used to work at BNY Mellon as the first as a trustee associate, and later was promoted to become vice president in the area of investment management and investment services. One additional thing that makes Mark a very special guest is, even though he's not a Queens College alum and nobody's perfect, but he still has time to, continue in the life of lifelong learning. Our motto, "We learn so that we may serve," is something that Mark takes very dear to heart. And he gives back to the community in a number of ways, but he's particularly proud of his service in the board of directors of Mind Matter NYC, which is a nonprofit organization that transforms the lives of accomplished high school students from low-income families by broadening their dreams and preparing them for college success. Mark's success in the corporate world is closely tied to his training in the humanities, and you will hear about that in his presentation today. He received his BA in American Studies and English with honors, magna cum laude from Northwestern University, and is a member of Phi Beta Kappa. So those of you who are trying to be Phi Beta Kappa, maybe Mark can give you the secret handshake that you get to learn at the Phi Beta Kappa ceremony when you get inducted. I was never Phi Beta Kappa. I've been trying to find out the handshake for the past 5 years. The students won't let me in. But again, very, very prestigious record that Mark had in his undergraduate career. As we mentioned, these events couldn't happen without the great support of our sponsors, so I want to join Diane in thanking them. We also have in our audience representatives from two elected officials who are very, very close to the college and very supportive of the work that we do. So we have in the audience representation from the office of our Queensboro President, Melinda Katz. Yes, thank you so much. And then also from our good friend, Assemblyman David Weber's office, so right here. So thank you so much for being with us. And now, for what we came here to do, I'm delighted to introduce our speaker for today, Mark Shpizner. Thank you, Mark. Come on up.
Wow, okay. Well, thank you, Felix, for that very kind and generous introduction. And I just want to thank the students, faculty, staff, alumni, and the entire Queens College community for having me today. Especially thanks to Diane and Michael Wolf, who brought me here and prepped me so well. So thank you, especially. And wanted to also acknowledge two VIPs in the audience, both Queens College alums, as Felix mentioned, my uncle Jeff Meyer, class of '76, and my colleague from BlackRock, Steve Loomer, class of '85. And just one matter of housekeeping, because Diane promised a panel discussion, and I don't even have like slides or anything to present here, just my talk here. I'll scan the audience periodically for raised hands, and feel free to chime in with questions. I'd much prefer this to be interactive than just me talking at you for 45 minutes, which I think will be not as entertaining anyway. All right, on with the show. So as Felix mentioned, I work at BlackRock, the world's largest asset management company. Our clients trust us to manage more money than any other investment firm. That's $6.3 trillion with a T, more than the GDP of every country in the world except the US and China. We have an incredibly broad, diverse platform with just about every type of investment product, from index and exchange-traded fund strategies to active stock and bond-picking portfolios and money market funds, to hedge funds, real estate, and infrastructure investments. We also offer a suite of technology tools to help our clients manage risk, construct portfolios, and deepen the impact of their financial professionals in securing better financial futures for their customers. We work with institutions of all kinds, from the largest governments, corporations, and state and local pension plans, all the way down to family offices, endowments, and foundations. And Felix, I'll be talking to you about that afterwards. Okay. We don't make our investment products available to individuals directly, but instead through intermediaries such as brokerage and investment advisory firms and company 401k plans. I work in an area at BlackRock called advisory, which is separate from our asset management activities. We work with clients in a consulting capacity to help with challenges related to managing their balance sheets and financial instrument exposures, managing risk and data, complying with financial services regulations, and evaluating whether to acquire or dispose of portfolios of highly complex assets. For most people, when I tell them that I double majored in American studies and English, they look at me like I have two heads. What do the liberal arts, the humanities, have to do with capital markets transaction support? How did I get here? My story is about maturity, creativity, and luck. First is maturity. My story starts right here in New York City, where, like several of you, I was born and raised. More than any other place on earth, I'd argue, New York City makes you grow up fast. New York opens your eyes to all kinds of diversity: ethnic, socioeconomic, religious, geocultural. And New Yorkers need to know from an early age to have their wits about them, to prepare for the unexpected, lest you get clipped by a speeding bike messenger, or be victim to an unwanted subway encounter, or, my personal worst nightmare, be an unsuspecting target of pigeon guano. But I'm part of a cohort that had to grow up especially quickly. My second day of high school was 9/11. At 14, I bore witness simultaneously to the worst of human society and also the best, when the city came together and we nurtured each other back to consciousness. Suddenly, the everyday hazards of New York City that I just mentioned seem trivial compared to the suddenness of life or death situations and the need for resilience in the face of adversity. This was also the first time I truly experienced empathy, technically defined as the ability to understand and share the feelings of another. Empathy is the bond that rewove the fabric of New York City in the years to come. I mentioned that the second part of my story is about creativity. Growing up, I gravitated to activities inside and outside the classroom that exercised my creative muscles, the only muscles I had back then since I had zero athletic ability. Literature, creative writing, theater, music, these were the subjects that dominated my academic curriculum. I studied classical piano for 13 years and performed in plays and musicals. Studying literature and the performing arts was another prime opportunity to learn about empathy, entering the psyche of a character, a protagonist, a narrator who desperately wanted to understand the world and wanted to be understood. Experiencing the world through the five senses of another person, learning how someone else's background and life experiences shape how they interact with their environment. I carried these pursuits with me to the Weinberg College of Arts and Sciences at Northwestern University, where I quickly felt outmatched at the amazing talents of my fellow students in creative writing, music, and theatrical performance. Just to give you an idea of who I'm talking about, Veronica Roth from some of my English classes went on to write the Divergent book series, which got made into a movie series, etc. Countless theater and music majors are now leading actors or music directors and conductors in Broadway shows such as Hamilton, Legally Blonde, and Kinky Boots. And so during my freshman and sophomore years, maturity kicked in again, forcing periodic moments of self-reflection. Was my fondness for writing and performing the stuff of a potential career or simply a hobby? I set to find that out via an internship during my first college summer working for producers on Broadway, which involved a The Devil Wears Prada-style trip to Hermes to buy Usher's mother a silk scarf, and a walk through Times Square carrying a life-size stuffed dog. Anyone who's interested in the full story, see me afterwards. Suffice to say that I forced myself to grow up some more and find a way to channel my love for writing and creativity into something that I could take with me after college. And that's when I found the American Studies program at Northwestern. The program draws on faculty from the humanities and social sciences to craft an interdisciplinary approach to analyzing American culture. One of my fellow classmates described it to me as reading literature as history and reading history as literature. American Studies is the ultimate pursuit in creativity. To fulfill the program's requirements, students must chart their own path through liberal arts courses that culminates in a senior year thesis that explores an emblem of American culture. In a moment of true maturity, I took the bull by the horns and I dove into courses in psychology, sociology, art history, Jewish studies, American history, and of course literature, and wrote my honors thesis on American comic book superheroes. Yes, you heard that right. More specifically, I analyzed how the original renditions of Superman and Batman in the 1930s represented different stories of Jewish acculturation in World War II era America. I'll spare you all more details on my thesis. This is the business forum, after all. Again, come find me afterwards if you're curious to learn more. But now I'm going to talk to you about luck. By now you're all wondering, what do Superman and Batman have to do with a career in financial services? This is where luck comes in, and not the good kind. In 2009, the year I graduated from Northwestern, the global economy was in turmoil in the aftermath of the financial crisis that soon became the Great Recession. And I just want to give you some statistics from 2009 to help set the stage. The global real GDP growth rate in 2009 was minus 2.5%, the exact opposite of the World Bank's target of positive 2.3%. By June 2009, which is when I graduated, the US unemployment rate hit 9.5% and then later crept up to 10% by October, the second highest ever recorded since the Depression. Non-farm employers laid off 2.1 million workers in 11,827 separate layoff events, which was the most ever recorded since annual data became available in 1996. Financial services employees accounted for 39% of unemployment insurance claims, and those employees experienced the longest average jobless duration of all sector employees. Our hometown of New York City was hit particularly hard, considering the disproportionately high number of financial firms headquartered there. And as many of you probably already know, tomorrow marks 1 decade since the collapse of Lehman Brothers, followed by the government's bailout of AIG. That was September 15th, 2008. In short, 2009 was not a great year to look for a full-time job after college. But after some hustling and patience, I found a job as an operations clerk in the corporate trust division of the Bank of New York Mellon. My salary was barely above minimum wage, and my position was so low level within the company that I didn't even have an official corporate title. For those of you who don't know what corporate trust means, it's the administrative function of safekeeping and processing bonds on behalf of issuers and investors. In other words, part of the back office plumbing of Wall Street. My day-to-day responsibilities included opening bank accounts, having trust certificates messengered to the Depository Trust and Clearing Corporation, processing tax forms and sending them to the IRS, and fielding investor-client calls, mostly all angry that these investments, they were all mortgage-backed securities, and we all know how that story ended, were in default. Of course, I was grateful to have a job, while many of my contemporaries didn't. Nevertheless, the job didn't exactly draw on any of the creative skills that I had devoted my time in college to, and each day I struggled to stay motivated. I found myself combing through thousands of pages of trust documents just to learn the vocabulary, the roles of all the participants in the transactions, the acronyms, the justification behind the credit ratings, just to pass the time. And then, after about 10 months, when I finally decided I couldn't take it anymore and had to look for something new, my luck changed. I saw a job posting on the company's internal career website for a junior position within a new group that the bank was forming to design new ways to grow revenues with our most important clients. I blindly submitted my resume, and I got a call a day later from the HR recruiter who said that the hiring manager wanted to interview me. Not only that, she said that this new group would report directly to the president of the bank because the initiative was so important to the firm, and the hiring manager, a philosophy major from a small liberal arts college called Hamilton, which some of you may have heard of, was looking for someone hungry to learn, willing to work extra hard, and adept at critical thinking and strategy rather than someone with a more traditional finance background. I remember distinctly on the day I interviewed for the job, the man who would become my boss asked me, "So what do you think your greatest strength is that you could bring to this role?" And my honest answer was, my college background taught me how to write well and how to think, how to analyze a problem or issue from multiple different points of view to translate complex ideas into a clear, simple strategy. I accepted an offer the next week, and the ensuing months and years transformed my life. The new group that I got hired into was tasked with running a P&L for a handful of the bank's most valuable clients and finding new ways for the bank to earn revenue from those clients. In industry speak, we call that to increase our share of the client's wallet. My job was to come up with new ideas for services and solutions to help these clients through their longer-term business challenges, which for an investment servicing and asset management company usually meant finding ways to save them money either through operations or technology outsourcing or to offer their customers or their employees better investment products. Being successful in this role didn't mean designing elaborate econometric or financial forecasting models or doing discount cash flow analysis, which people typically associate with early roles in finance. Instead, my success depended on my ability to empathize with my clients, to understand their business and the end customers they serve, and thereby their strategic revenue and cost challenges, and tap into all the business lines across the bank to design tailored solutions to address those challenges, and ultimately communicate the benefits of our offering to the clients in a way that would make them excited to spend their money with us. Turns out, my writing skills were useful as well when it came time to compose written briefing memos and talking points for our senior-most executives, whom we would periodically call in to close the deal at the top of the house with our clients. Call it luck, or call it just really strategic timing, but this role naturally drew upon the creative and critical thinking skills that I had honed at Northwestern. Plus, discussing how I had made Superman and Batman the subjects of serious academic pursuit turned out to be an effective icebreaker at client dinners and meetings. So just remember that. A few years and promotions later, I had helped to bring two of the largest revenue-generating outsourcing deals in our company's history into the firm. And when BlackRock came knocking with a timely opportunity to help build their strategic client program, I jumped at the chance and it helped to have this experience to draw from. Once settled at BlackRock, I started working with some of the firm's largest clients. Some were the same clients as from my time at BNY Mellon, some were different, to help them manage, grow, and scale their business. In some cases, we implemented our portfolio and risk management platform called Aladdin to help their staff make more informed investment decisions and streamline some of the operations associated with managing complex portfolios. In other cases, we provided new investment opportunities for institutions looking for exposure to renewable power or to targeted emerging markets or municipal issuers, and in other cases, designed new tailored offerings for banks to offer their private wealth customers to help them achieve specific outcomes, or simply to help them better prepare for or live comfortably in retirement. Because my team reported into the chief of staff to our chairman and CEO, Larry Fink, I was often called into meetings and situations with Larry and with members of our firm's global executive committee. And that would also involve meetings, cocktail parties, and dinners with very senior leaders at my client firms to demonstrate how much BlackRock cherishes our partnerships with these organizations. Here's where maturity came in handy again, or in business speak, sometimes we call this gravitas, or executive presence. Taking a step back, reflecting on my time at BlackRock has made me realize that it wasn't just luck. There's something to this way of thinking, of developing empathy with clients, of diagnosing the big picture challenges and solving them together to build deeper, trusted partnerships. I also realized that even a company as forward-thinking and sophisticated as the world's largest asset management firm could benefit from an American studies style approach to managing large, complex client relationships. I know I said at the beginning that my story was about maturity, creativity, and luck, but the true engine that has powered my business career is the skill set that I credit to my liberal arts education. Research and intellectual curiosity, identifying themes and patterns and crafting a critical argument, taking elements from existing knowledge sources and creating something new out of it, connecting the dots, which is also a word that you hear a lot in big corporations, connecting the dots, seeing the connections between seemingly unrelated ideas and figuring out how they fit together. The knowledge base that I gained from working across every business area and geography within BlackRock has made me a more credible resource to our clients. Clients began to trust that I could quickly tap the BlackRock network to find answers to critical questions that would influence, ultimately, where they deployed their firm's capital, which in turn became valuable currency within the firm as I sought a new opportunity at BlackRock earlier in this year. My new role in our advisory group relies on those same client relationship skills. Every day, I hear from clients about their top-of-mind challenges, and I partner with my colleagues to assemble and deploy teams of experts to help solve them. And sometimes this requires tapping into resources and expertise outside our immediate team. Even beyond our day-to-day business, I've extended my practice of forging long-term partnerships into BlackRock's corporate social responsibility efforts, which is a hugely meaningful part of what our firm stands for. Years ago, as Felix briefly mentioned, I introduced BlackRock to Minds Matter New York City, an amazing nonprofit organization where I serve on the board of directors that provides college access for high-achieving, low-income high school students, and we get them into college. Since then, BlackRock has given Minds Matter over $85,000 in direct support, and over 200 BlackRock employees have donated their time, and in some cases their money, to our phenomenal students. This incredible partnership between BlackRock and Minds Matter has been a win all around. For our employees, who feel a sense of pride and purpose in doing their part to help these students succeed. For the firm, which is using its influence to help our lower income communities, particularly communities of color, close the achievement gap. And certainly for our students, who have found lifelong role models in these successful and talented professionals, and not to mention, more recently, have found employment with us as interns and full-time analysts. I want to come back to the title of my talk today, From American Studies to Asset Management, the value of a liberal arts education in today's business environment. The thought I'd like to leave you all with, besides, man, this guy must have broken the world record for longest speech title, oh my goodness, is that business, asset management, finance, tons of other industries, is about people, about creating and nurturing relationships. It's about finding a role, a path that motivates you and makes use of your unique strengths and talents. BlackRock is the perfect example of a company that is so much more than just an asset management or even more generally a finance firm. The work we do is so diverse that we seek out an equally diverse array of skill sets and college majors into our community. We have people in marketing and event planning whose backgrounds range from the humanities to computer science to hospitality. We have over 1,000 application developers who write code and build the software programs that we rely on every day to serve our clients. We have PhDs, engineers, and data scientists who analyze reams of data using artificial intelligence to gain sharper insights for our stock-picking investment teams. And actually, one of the heads of that group used to work at NASA, which I thought was pretty cool. We have a public policy team that works with regulators around the world to promote financial market stability, to protect investors, and to advocate for public-private joint efforts to help individuals prepare for and live in retirement. We have an investment stewardship team filled with people with backgrounds in law, healthcare, political science, math, and economics that engages with the companies we have investments in to encourage business and management practices that support long-term sustainable financial performance. And of course, we have our advisory practice where I sit, filled with ex-traders, ex-consultants, ex-investment bankers, some software engineers and financial modelers, and at least one liberal arts major. I'm calling out all these diverse areas within BlackRock to show you all that the abstract concept of business is not one-dimensional. It's an environment where people with so many different educational backgrounds can find ways to put their core strengths to good use for success. On the flip side, and this goes especially for any of you who are still deciding your major or who have declared and are second-guessing whether you made the right choice, I'd also argue that choosing a major doesn't have to mean choosing a career or a vocation. Business is primed and positioned to make great use of many different skills, and it's up to you to tap into it in the way that speaks to you. So that's it. Thank you so much for having me, and I would love to take your questions. How'd I do on time? Oh, pretty good.
I like your unique perspective. Can you tell us a little bit about how you gained your business knowledge that was suitable or unique to the company, useful to the company, coming from a totally different field?
Sure. So I mentioned at one part of my speech that, you know, the act of doing research and kind of like the scholarly aspect of the work that I did post my first year at BNY Mellon in the client management job. And I would say that's where I kind of honed some of the direct on-the-job skills that served me well, because, you know, in order to understand what the longer-term drivers and challenges of my clients' businesses were, I had to understand their business. So I had to read their company 10Ks and quarterly financial reports, and I had to learn how to read a balance sheet, but I didn't need to have done that in my college training. I just did that on the job with the right mentors and colleagues to help me through that. So I like to look at it as like an academic exercise, kind of, where it's like, you know, I'm reading a primary or secondary source document, but it just happens to have a bunch of numbers and, you know, jargon in it about like what does, you know, corporate insurance and retail insurance mean and things like that.
I think it's very interesting that you mentioned several times about the importance to have empathy. And I think that's something that we forget in today's world. And I found that very interesting. People skills, soft skills. Could you just comment on that?
Sure.
Because I think that was a key that really helped you get where you are today.
Yeah, and I won't take full credit for this. Like, we talk about, all of our senior leaders at BlackRock talk about empathy all the time when we're talking about, you know, what we think makes us successful with our clients and why our clients like coming back to us for services and solutions. I mean, That's what this business, our business and many of the financial related businesses, they're service businesses and they're people businesses and they're run by people all over the world. And so empathy is a hugely important part of why a client will decide to partner with us versus our competitor versus just do something internally in-house. Because if we can demonstrate, yeah, like we understand where you're coming from, we were there, we know what it's like. One example is we were making a pitch for a really, really large piece of business earlier this year to a company that had spun off from a larger entity, and they had gone public recently. And our CEO, Larry, was in the room with them and said, I remember what it was like when we first IPO'd and Wall Street hated us and thought that we would never make it, thought we would never be successful, and look where we are now. And he's like, I see a lot of us in you guys. And that was like such a powerful moment for them because they said, yes, this firm gets it. They get what we're trying to accomplish. They get how important this moment is for us. And the piece of business that we were bidding on, it wasn't just like several billions of dollars of assets that we were hoping would come our way, but it was more a test of, can BlackRock be a true partner to us? And that's what we sought out to prove. So it's moments like that where really the empathy is really important.
I thought you gave a terrific speech.
Thank you.
First of all,
Thank you.
very, very entertaining.
Thank you.
And you brought up a lot of good points. Having worked on Wall Street myself, when I started, it was easy to get a job because people really didn't look for your background. They just looked whether you'd be willing to take the punishment of working on Wall Street in 14-hour days. Given what's going on now, how does someone who is a liberal arts major end up in business by explaining what they can do for the company that they want to be hired by? It's difficult because so many HRs will just take, well, he or she is a liberal arts major, we don't have anything for that. How does someone interview well under those circumstances if they can at least get an interview?
So I would answer that question two ways, I think, because the first way is I don't think, well, at least it has not been my personal experience that any particular area within BlackRock or even BNY Mellon when I worked there were thinking of any specific area within the firm as, oh, this area would be good for this type of major. Like, obviously, yes, I mentioned we have a public policy group, for instance, and so that tends to skew towards like public policy majors, but it also has people with, other humanities and social sciences and very different backgrounds. And so one way to answer the question is, well, I think as hiring managers, and I am one myself, of current and prospective interns and full-time analysts, which is what we call first and second years out of school, is we really just look for, there is still an element of we look for the kids who just kind of want to come in and work hard and are willing to put in the long hours and learn what it takes to learn. It's also, and I tell people this all the time, and it's amazing how many don't actually do it. It's like, just the act of researching, for instance, if you're coming in to interview with BlackRock, like researching the firm and the important statistics about the firm, what types of clients we work with, what types of issues we've been heard about in the news about recently, and maybe even researching something about some of the senior people that run our company. Like those are easy, relatively easy data points to collect in a research prep process that several students who interview actually don't do, and it helps distinguish people who really show keen interest in working for us versus students who are just applying to a bunch of different places and they just want a job. And so I would argue that is, to me, more important, because I review resumes all the time of kids who have liberal arts background or other types of background, and you could say maybe I'm biased because I was one, but I think it rings true for a number of the different areas within our company that we don't pay as much attention to the specific major as far as like weeding in or out certain qualifications for the job. It's more just, are you successful in your major? Like, what is your GPA overall, but what's your GPA in your major? And have you made any contributions from the field that you're in maybe the community or in the university like more broadly that, could speak to how passionately you care about something. And that's what we care about too, is like the passion. I would love I would love to hear from some of the students too, if they have any questions.
I'll get one of them next, but here's one of our
Okay.
professors.
No problem.
Hi, Mark. I'm actually one of the finance and accounting professors. I'm curious, within your liberal arts education, can you point to any specific coursework that you found really helped you, hone in your communication and obviously writing skills?
I mean, there are like first of all, it was a number of years ago, so I would say there were a lot of courses. I took, classes in art history that taught me about how like the evolution of styles had changed and what did that mean about the time period. I think a lot of my American Studies courses were about when I said like reading history as literature and vice versa, what I meant was like when you pick up a textbook, which is supposed to be a secondary source document, an American Studies major would look at how it's written and what types of topics that they write about or leave out as a symbol of like that particular point in time, and why did the authors of this textbook like find these few things important, but these other items in the historical record is not as important to write about or write as much about. And that process sticks out to me especially because when you are in client meetings or you're reading, investor presentations that are given by big companies who are, trying to impress everybody with how amazing their company is, you kind of learn like what maybe do they leave out that they don't say, or how have they presented certain information in a way that tells a particular story, but maybe there are other stories that can be told about the same set of data. So I would argue that I wouldn't point to like one class in particular in the American Studies curriculum, but a number of my classes in that curriculum were important to that. I would also say, and take this for what it is, I took a gender studies class too, to fulfill one of my distribution requirements, and it was about the fluidity of gender identity, and I wrote my my term paper for that class on the pregnant man. And it was a really amazing experience because to my point earlier about empathy, like that was kind of to me the ultimate, I didn't put it in the speech, but it was to me the like ultimate experience in empathy, just to kind of, really absorb like what are certain people going through and what are some of the assumptions that you might make without even knowing it by the way people speak or the way people, carry themselves or ask or don't ask certain questions. I think that was a really important exercise for me, especially in empathy.
Hi, I'm a student at Queens College. My name is Dove.
Hello.
Hello. Great speech, by the way.
Thank
Really
you.
enjoyed it.
Thanks for coming.
My pleasure. As someone whose major might not currently reflect where I would want to end up in my career, does it still make sense to, let's say, go for an interview for an internship or even a job at your company or another company that, again, would not have any bearing on where I would want to end up as a career? Or does it make more sense to really settle down and try and focus and find an internship with the opportunity or occupation that you really would want to end up?
That's a tough question. Let's chat afterwards too, because I want to learn more about your story in particular. But my gut would say that, so I can speak from my own personal experience, which is my series of internships in college were as much an exercise in what I ended up not wanting to do as much as what I did want to do. So I talked about the internship that I did for the producers of Chicago the Musical on Broadway, and I came into it thinking like, oh, maybe I'm not good enough to do theater and music and all that like as an actual career, but maybe I could be more of the like business behind the scenes kind of that angle of it. And then I got there and didn't quite love the work I was doing, didn't quite feel motivated by the energy in the actual office, and I realized, wow, I mean, maybe I learned as much of a lesson about kind of how I thought I wanted to do something, but then I got there and it turned out not to be the thing that I wanted. And I would think, for a number of students, like that is an important evolutionary process to go through. Because, people convince themselves all the time, I must do this job, I must have this kind of a career. And then, they get there and maybe they like it a lot and maybe they don't like it as much. But I think it's a process of going through different experiences. And I would also say that generally speaking, companies like ours, like when people are hiring for college interns and then for analysts the year after college, we're also just looking for meaningful internship experience. And so that could be from another large established company. It doesn't have to be even in finance. It could just be another large established company where, you had a meaningful role. Or you could say, you know what, I worked at this like startup or, technology organization, but I like ran everything from HR to operations to this and that and the other. And just the experience of that means so much because it means you're versatile. It means you are a go-getter. It means you have a lot of other valuable skills that companies like ours would want. But I definitely would love to hear your story after if there's time.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Hi,
Hello.
my name's Jennifer.
Nice to
I'm
meet you.
a senior here. My major is accounting. Thank you for coming.
Nice. My pleasure.
So, my question is for not specifically liberal arts majors, but rather for someone who is more specialized in terms of like background and skill set. It kind of tunnels us into like specific spaces, right? So, for example, like I interned this previous summer, and it was like we were channeled into like one of two places, and for me, I kind of felt like it was confining or limiting. So what would be your advice on the opposite side of the spectrum to somebody who maybe wants to keep the door open for like a consulting type of space, but not specific to that skill set?
Yeah, that's also a tough question. Maybe I'm a hopeless optimist, but I would argue, just from knowing how many different areas in BlackRock have people with accounting background. There's even people in my group with accounting backgrounds, and that's like a very valuable skill to have when you're crunching numbers around, financial exposures on a bank's balance sheet. Like that. I think, and maybe this is, I would just say, like, if it were me, I would put the onus also on myself to kind of try and craft a story. And I would argue that there are, if you have, meaningful work experience and good grades and, some meaningful activities on your resume, like, there will be some times where you get boxed out because the competition elsewhere is so vast. But there will be other times in other companies that you apply for where that will get you the foot in the door, and then you kind of have to craft the story about why the core skills that you have from the program that you're in are actually like valuable in another context that's not your traditional accounting. But that is more than possible, and I would argue like we have people, in even some like sales jobs and other jobs where like the accounting background is actually very helpful, but it's not immediately what you would think of for someone with that background. So maybe this is a cop-out answer, but I would say part of the onus rests, I think, on the individual to kind of craft a story about why those skills are important. It involves understanding like the potential division or group that you're applying into at the company. But there is a way, I think. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark, very much. It was a very informative speech. So as a token of our appreciation, we have a little QC.
Thank you so much.
And a certificate, and thank you so much.
Great. My
Really
pleasure.
appreciate it. So we had some great questions, and I just want to encourage the students in the audience to visit the Center for Career Engagement and Internships in Fries Hall. Several career educators are there to help you with these questions, and we'd love to see you. I do want to just make a couple of quick announcements. Ying Zhao, who is the Executive Director of our QC Incubator, will be giving a tour this morning. So if you're interested in going to see our incubator, you can just wait in the left-hand side in the back. I want to thank everyone once again for coming. Queens College is happy to bring these informative business forums to both the college and our community. Our next forum will be held November 9th, when Queens College will host a panel presentation entitled Beyond Millennials, Advertising in the Age of New Media. Again, anyone wishing to learn more about upcoming events and opportunities at Queens College, please see me or stop at the reception table. I hope you enjoyed this. I would also like to thank you for coming and also thank QPTV for televising this event, and we look forward to seeing you on November 9th.